2018. Deputy Collins.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. Minister, I've been in contact regularly enough with families affected by who are waiting for this bill to come through. We know it was enacted in July of 2018. They're anxiously waiting for it. They're in a dilemma, obviously, with the registration of their children when they're born. They've been waiting for the last 6 months. I've put in regular questions on it. I get the standard reply from the Minister of Health that it's going through the process in Part 9 and Section Part 2 and 3 of the Family Relations Act 2015. It's my intention that Part 2 and 3 of the Act will be commenced as soon as possible. Part 9, we're waiting for that to be sorted out as well. And then just last week, the Minister for Social Protection came out and said that it won't be implemented now until possibly sometime in 2019. And a lot of people are getting very frustrated by this because they feel it's been put in the long finger that there's no real will there or urgency to get this bill past the line. I got an email from the LGBT Ireland who said they met with the Senior Civil Service and the Department of Social Protection on the outstanding issue of Part 9 of the Children and Families Relationship Act 2015. The outcome of this meeting was disappointing and unexpected, as the Department officials advised that there were technical errors in the provisions as they currently stand in the Act, and that it is proposed that these amendments be corrected by means of committee stage amendments to the Social Welfare, Pensions and Civil Registration Bill 2017. And this is a lengthy process, and this will push the commencement date into next year, 2019. Now, Minister, I've been in this style for the last 7 years, and there is no problem by the government, or they want to bring in bills with technical details to be dealt with. It's only technical errors it could be brought into this Dáil without debate, after agreement, obviously, with all the parties, to deal with those technical issues. And that's really what I want to hear today. Why isn't there urgency there? And for the Minister to explain how technical these are, or how difficult it is to bring the amendments to the Social Welfare, Pensions and Civil Registration Bill of 2017. So, Minister, I'd be interested to know, and I know there's a lot of people out there interested to find out exactly where this bill is and how quickly you want to proceed with it.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle, and I want to thank Deputy Collins. I know her special interest in this subject from her constituents, and it's important that you do raise these issues. And I just want to apologise for Minister Doherty. She's in the chamber, or in the Shannon chamber at the moment, and unfortunately cannot take this issue this afternoon. But can I just say to Deputy Collins, this is a complex issue. Deputies will already be aware of this, and you've pointed out there that certain sections in Part 9 of the Children's and Family Relationship Act 2015 provide for registration and re-registration of the birth of donor-conceived child, and in particular make possible the registration of details of parent as well as mother and father as required. I think that's something we all agree on. The current position, Deputy Collins, in relation to this is that these sections need to be amended, as you have rightly pointed out, to correct these technical errors, and have yet to be commenced. It is the Minister's intention to have these amendments taken, as you said, as part of the committee stage amendments to the Social Welfare, Pensions and Civil Registration Bill 2017. Commencement of these provisions is also dependent on the commencement of Part 2 and 3 of the Act, which, of course, is the responsibility of the Minister for Health. And in this regard, the Children and Families Relationship Amendment Bill 2018 was enacted as you said, on the 24th of July 2018. It was introduced to correct the topographical and technical errors in the Children and Family Relationships Bill, or Act 2015, which will facilitate the subsequent commencement of Part 2 and 3 of the Act. So as you can see, it is quite complex. There's issues overlapping, and one has to move with the other. There are also important administrative and operational arrangements put into place to facilitate the implementation of Part 2 and 3, including the establishment of a National Donor Conceived Persons Register and the appointment of authorised persons under the Act. The Minister understands that it is the Minister for Health's intention that Part 2 and 3 of the Act will be commenced as soon as possible. Now, I don't have a date for that, but I am meeting the Minister for Health later on, and I will ask him to communicate directly with you, Deputy Collins, in relation to this. But in order to progress this, officials from the General Registrar Office, the Department of the Employment Affairs and Social Protection, and the Department of Health are working together that the appropriate legislative, regulatory and operational mechanisms are in place to allow for the earliest possible commencement of all the relevant legislation that would allow for the birth registrations of donor-conceived children. So there is collaboration ongoing between the three bodies, and the Minister is aware of the impact that this issue is having on affected families. I think you've outlined them yourself from your own constituency here in Dublin, particularly for same-sex female couples wishing to have their second partner registered as parent, and of the pressing need to proceed with the commencement as soon as possible. But I do understand where you're coming from. I know you've been working on this for some time, and I will ensure that both ministers are aware of what you've raised here this evening, Deputy Collins.
Minister. Deputy Collins.
I just want to read out an email that I received from a parent, and I think it just shows the frustration, and I want to put it on the record of the Dáil really to say, move it along. It needs to be, the urgency behind it needs to be urged on as such. My wife and I had been together since 2003. We married in 2009 under UK legislation. I say we because we both made that decision to have our first child in 2013. We both attended appointments. I was there when our daughter was born and through the sleepless nights and first steps. However, per the state, only my wife is our parent. Roll forward to 2015, this time I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant during the marriage equality referendum and all the horrible things that were said about LGBTQ families, but hopeful that the Children and Family Relations Act would be progressed. For all that it seemed to be rushed through, but in September when my son was born, there was still no move in the commencement of the Act, and once again my wife and I had to deal with the inconvenience, expense and annoyance of sworn affidavits that he only had one parent to get a birth cert or a passport. And she's saying the problems they have when they have to travel to England, they're going over to England for Christmas to see her grandparents, and all that hassle that goes along with it, and all these families are experiencing the same thing. And I understand it is a complex sort of movement of amendments and legislation and acts and that, but I really do think that we can move it along much quicker and we get the parts in place, and even if we could set a date that we could say to people, yes, it's going to happen, we're going to pursue it until this date, or as close to as possible with it, because people just feel a bit lost in the whole legislative process.
Yeah, just brief supplementary, I suppose to say that, you know, I mean, there are stories out there, and you've rightly pointed out, of parents in similar situations. And it does need to be dealt with, as you've rightly pointed out. It is complex and it is technical. There are technical issues there in relation to this. But I think it's important, you know, that we get this right to ensure that there are no problems afterwards, and the legislation is good legislation to ensure that those technical difficulties, that both parents are recognised, and not just father, mother, as you rightly pointed out. And these are harrowing stories we know, and that from other couples all over the country. So I think by raising it here this afternoon in the chamber, Deputy Collins, you certainly will. You've highlighted the issue again, and you've put it on the Dáil record here. I certainly will ensure, through my work as a minister in the Department of Social Protection, that the officials from the GRO, the officials in my own department, and the Department of Health will ensure that the appropriate legislative and the regulatory operational mechanisms are put into place, and done so as quickly as possible. Obviously, you're at the end of the year now, but we would hope that 2019, that we will strive to ensure this is done. I can't give you a time for this, but I can emphasise to both ministers and to the GRO the urgency of this and the issue that was raised by you this afternoon, Deputy Collins, and I know where you're coming from. Thank you very much.